Welcome back to Wake Up America. Well, as you wake up this morning, there's a pretty good chance you're under a heat advisory. That's the case for over 170 million Americans today. So joining us now for everything you need to know about staying safe during these extreme conditions is internist for Custom Care Medical, Dr. Frank Contessessa, and former Chief of Staff for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Attorney Mandy Gunasekera. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Okay, so July was the hottest month ever recorded, and as we move into August, temperatures show no sign of cooling off. Dr. Frank, I do want to start with you. Okay, I grew up in the South. I played soccer. I remember soccer tournaments in the middle of July. I've blacked out. I've passed out. I've cramped, nausea, vomiting. I have a two-parter for you. So first, what are the serious ramifications of heat-related illnesses, number one? And number two, do you have any tips for people to prevent something like that?
Sure, and good morning, Alex. And so, the key word here is hydration. When you're out, when you're doing activities in the heat, obviously we're sweating, especially in the humidity. You're not evaporating the sweat from your skin, and you get hotter and hotter. It's actually, when you're in a dry environment and the sweat will evaporate, that actually helps to cool you. So in places like here in Florida, it's very, very humid. And your body temperature goes up. So the key is hydration to replace that lost fluid. And you really want to stick with water. Yes, you can use some of the energy drinks, but you have to be a little bit careful with the energy drinks. There tends to be sugar, there tends to be caffeine or artificial sweeteners, which you really don't need. So really just making sure that you replace that water. Now, for athletes, it's one thing, you get thirsty, and thankfully coaches today are giving more water breaks than they did in the past. I played football, 30 years ago, and, it was you stayed in until you passed out, and you didn't get really a lot of water breaks. Now people are more conscious of it. So really hydration is the key.
Absolutely, definitely. Mandy, so wildfires have obviously been an issue all summer long, especially here in New York. We saw, the haziness here. How big of an issue do you think this is for Americans and the environment right now?
Yeah, certainly the wildfires in Canada are impacting Americans' day-to-day lives. It can also have impacts on air quality that folks in impacted areas should pay attention to. But in the larger picture, the wildfires, there's a lot of attempts to try and paint this into some catastrophic scene of climate change. Folks need to ignore that is the rhetoric of activists and politicians. That is not the rhetoric of what's actually going on in Canada, causing the majority of these fires, which is poor forest management. There are tangible solutions that are longer term that can be deployed to reduce the amount of times that Americans are having to deal with poor air quality here in the United States as a result of poor wildfire and forest management practices in Canada.
I do want to continue on that thought of poor air quality. So, Dr. Frank, according to new studies published in Circulation, the chances of heart attacks nearly double during heat waves or days where there's pollution from the smoke, like Mandy was just talking about. What precautions should people take when it comes to wildfire smoke that just continues to drift down from Canada?
That's right, Alex. This was a study out of China that they did that showed that there is a connection with heat and air pollution. In China, it was really just automobile pollution and not so much the smoke, but the principle is the same. Each of those things can increase the risk of heart attack, heat, and the pollution. And when you combine them, you get a synergistic effect that basically 1 + 1 = 3, where, they're worse than the sum of the parts. So if you're at risk, if you're overweight, if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, and the air quality is poor, you want to stay inside, you want to stay in the air conditioning, you might want to consider something like an air filter. And if you have to be outside, particularly if there's smoke and haze, it's a chance that you actually do want to wear a high quality mask. And if I could just get one quick word in on the hydration, older people have to be very careful too, because as you get older, you actually lose your thirst drive. When you're young and thirsty, you seek out water because it's all you can think about. As you get older, you could be very dehydrated and you don't really feel that thirsty. So it's very easy for older people to become clinically dehydrated. They just don't feel it. So older people have to be very conscious about replacing their fluid, even if you don't feel thirsty.
Wow, I did not know that. That's extremely informative, Dr. Frank. Well, Mandy, actually humans, they're not the only ones that have been affected by the heat wave. I mean, what concerns should our viewers have at home for their pets? And I know that animals really exhibit signs of overheating in very different ways than us humans do.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think it's paying attention to how your pet is acting. If your pet is acting a little abnormal than they normally are, then pay attention. As was just rightfully suggested for humans, stay hydrated. It's the exact same thing for pets. Keep them out of the heat of the day. Typically, that's from 12 to 2 when you want to stay out of the direct sunlight for a variety of reasons. And so pets are the same thing too. If you can bring them indoors to air conditioned temperatures, then certainly invite them in. But the most important thing is making sure that they stay hydrated in the same way it's important for humans as well.
So the theme of the day is hydration for animals, yourself, and especially for older adults, like you were just saying as well, Dr. Frank. Thank you for coming on this morning. Dr. Frank Contessessa, Mandy Gunasekera, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, still ahead, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis